Surron, we have a problem. And the culprit of the problem is, once again, this fork seal is leaking. But we've already half the problem, because around 2 weeks ago I had to change this side of the fork seal as well. These problems also have knock-on effects, so when a fork is leaking oil, it tends to then seep onto the brake rotor and the brake pads, completely contaminating the system, which means I have been completely without a front brake. So it's safe to say we've got a few things that we need to sort out on this bike. But once again, the guys over at JXR and MXBits.com have come in absolutely clutch to save the day. So to help with the problem of the contaminated rotors, JXR has decided to send me their new 220mm rotors, again in the orange colourway. Basically what I've already got on the bike, but these are going to be so much better. They're bigger rotors, and we'll explain later in the video why bigger is always better with rotors. So not only one rotor, but they actually did send me the pair of rotors, so we have got one for the front and one for the back, which means we're getting a full rotor swap today. Not only did JXR save the day by sending over some rotors, they've even sent some more bits to me. So they've sent the black steel foot peg brackets that go on the bike. These are going to be stronger than the stock aluminium ones that come on the bike, and they're in black, so they're just going to look so much better. Already you can tell they're so much better quality as well, just feeling it in the hand. And then to go with the foot peg brackets, we've also been sent some foot peg pins, but these pins are not just normal pins. These are some beefed up anodized orange foot peg pins that are going to look so good on the bike, going to be stronger. They've even got a nut on the bottom instead of the silly clips that come on the original stock pegs. So now we're jumping up from 203mm rotors up to 220mm rotors. We need some spacers so the calipers will fit properly on the rotors. So JXR have also come in clutch again and have come through with the spacers that are also going to fit with the 220mm rotors, making it compatible with the Surron. So I guess without further ado, let's start throwing these things onto the bike. But before we go ahead and put anything else on the bike, we need to sort out this contamination problem with a leaking front fork. So we have got a new dust seal and a new fork seal that we're going to be replacing on the Fast Ace forks again. I'll show you briefly how we do that, then we're going to jump straight into putting these brake rotors and other bits on the bike. Let's get into it. So first things first, you want to take an animal of an adjustable spanner. Then you can loosen the cap on top of the fork. Do this while it is still in the triple clamps. It will make it easier to undo by holding the fork leg. Then we can start taking off the fork guard and assessing the situation further. Next we need to get the number board out of the way. Now we can loosen off the triple clamps. We've also got to remove the front wheel, so we loosen off the axle and all of the pinch bolts on both sides. Then using appropriate tools we can remove the front axle and completely remove the front wheel. Then with the triple clamps completely loosened off, we can remove the fork leg, after struggling with the rubber frame protector. So just like that, that is one leaking fork leg taken off of the Surron. I find this the easiest way to remove the fork legs, because then everything just stays on the front of the bike without taking the whole headset and everything off. But the next thing we need to do is undo this top cap so we can slide it up. And once we can slide it up, you'll see the insides of the fork, and we'll see any oil that is left in the fork come out. So there was actually still some oil left in there. To be honest, the oil that's in there doesn't look great, so I'm not surprised that the forks are leaking if the oil was that dirty. But the next step is we've got to try and get this top cap off so we can then release the stanchion from the fork leg. So let's take a look at doing that. So to remove the top cap, you will have to undo this locking nut inside of the fork. Once that's loosened off, we can then unscrew the top cap completely, removing it from the fork. Now the bottom half of the fork is completely ready to be removed from the tube. And now is a good time to clean everything before starting work on the seals. Now we can start taking a look at removing the dust cover from the forks. This should just pop out with a flathead screwdriver. Then inside you will find the lock ring. This should also ping out with a flathead screwdriver, but make sure you don't lose it. And now to get the oil seal out, make sure you put a rag over the fork to protect the metal, and you can again use the flathead screwdriver, working the seal side by side until it is removed. And again, once it is removed, clean up any excess old oil from inside of the fork tube. Now we can start taking a look at getting the new oil seal inside of the fork. To do this, you simply place the seal over the fork. And normally this is where you would use a seal driver, but I don't have one of those, so I just use the roll of tape and a mallet. Now the seal is seated properly, we can now start taking a look at fitting the dust seal. But don't do what I did and forget to put that locking ring inside of the forks. I did actually have to go back and undo all of my work to make sure that I put that ring inside. So that is now one fast ace fork leg with a brand new oil seal and a brand new dust seal put in the bottom of it. All we're left now to do is rebuild the forks, put some oil back in the forks, and as for the oil, this is 10 weight oil. I think the oil that comes in the forks is 5 weight oil. I personally wanted to put 7 in, but I couldn't find 7 to come in time, so 10's going to have to do. And in terms of measurements of how much oil we put in, we put 280 millilitres into these forks. So without further ado, let's fill them back up and get them put back on the bike. When putting the lower stanchion back inside the fork tube, it's always a good idea to lubricate your seal, and then simply slide the tube over the lower stanchion. Now it's just a case of fill up the forks with the correct amount of oil and reinstall the top cap in the reverse steps that we showed earlier in the video. So with the forks now all fixed and rebuilt, hopefully that's no more leaking fork seals, but we can only tell by getting the wheel back on the bike, and the only way we can get the wheel back on the bike is by cracking on with what we came here to do, and that's getting these rotors changed. So let's get to work taking this old contaminated rotor off the bike, and then we're going to take a look at getting the 220mm JXR rotor back on. Let's do it. So these rotors are dead easy to change. All we need to do is release what would have been the 6 bolts around the rotor. I only have 5 because I previously lost one. Someone did point this out in the last video where I was messing with my rotors as well, but if you're that person, let's just pretend we got 6. I'll replace it in the future. So first off, we're going to remove all of these bolts and remove the rotor away from the wheel. Just like that, that's the old knackered rotor off of the wheel. So now we can start taking a look at getting the brand new JXR rotor 220mm put on the wheel. Now we're going to get this out, but I'm going to be careful not to actually try and touch the disc, because that will contaminate this disc as well. Any sweat, any oils, anything like that from the fingers will contaminate these discs. Not massively, just from the single touch of the fingers, but it's still contamination, and that's the problem that we've just tried to solve. So let's try and get this out without touching it. I'm actually going to cover my sleeve over my hand while I do this. That way we can pull out the rotors and I can grab the middle, and that is the JXR 220mm rotor. So comparing it to the old rotor, you should see a bit of size difference. I'm not going to put one on top of the other because then it will contaminate it as well, but you should see a slight difference in size. And again, the anodized colour coming a lot nicer on the JXR rotor if you ask me, and the design of the actual rotor itself is a lot nicer. This centre detail looks actually stronger than the centre detail on this rotor, and the actual holes drilled all around the rotor for heat dissipation are also way nicer looking than the slots that are drilled out on this one. So without further ado, let's get this rotor back on the wheel. So to reinstall the rotor, it's a simple case of Loctiting each bolt to make sure that it doesn't come undone while riding, and then reinsert each bolt. When tightening the bolts, make sure to do it in a star pattern to evenly tighten the rotor. Now we can start taking a look at installing the spacers to the calipers to make sure that it fits on the 220mm rotors. So to start, we remove the stock caliper from the forks. And with the caliper removed, we could then take our JXR spacer and put Loctite on the bolts that are going to be holding the spacers. Then we can install the 2 bolts holding in the spacer, but we don't want to tighten these all the way as we will need to readjust the spacer position when reinstalling the caliper. And now the wheel is finally put back on the bike, all the pinch bolts are done up and the front axle is tight. We've still got the brake caliper hanging off because A, I need to give it a clean, and B, we can't be putting old contaminated pads on a brand new rotor, so of course I've got to get some brand new pads. These are the Galfa e-bike series pads. I did used to use the Shimano HO3Cs, then I tried the Galfas, but I tried the green Galfas, which were just normal bike Galfas. Great brake pads, but we've gone for the e-bike edition this time. There is no real difference between the Galfas and the HO3Cs. The HO3Cs have got the heat fins to cool the pads down, but I went for these because they were there when I was available to buy them. So bought these in the shop. We're going to be throwing these on next, getting that caliper put back on. That's going to be the front end finished. So we finally got the front end of the bike fully rebuilt, got the brake rotor in, got the new pads in as well. There is a slight rub on the rotor, but the pads were really thick, and I opened up the pistons as much as I could in the calipers, and they're still rubbing, so we're just going to have to put up with that rubbing until the pads wear down ever so slightly. But now we've got the front of the bike running all sweet. We still got the back rotor to do, so it's basically a rinse and repeat process of the same but on the back wheel. you obviously have to remove the back wheel to get to the rotor. So I am just going to time lapse all of this because it is a rinse and repeat process. It's just doing what we've just done on the front, but we're going to do it on the back. So I'm going to time lapse the whole thing. Once we've got the bike rebuilt, we'll take a quick look and let's get out riding. So we finally got them brake rotors on, everything should be fitted and working well, and I cannot wait to get out and give them a try. Like mentioned, there's a bit of rubbing on the pads, but they were brand new pads and they're brand new rotors, and they even look like thicker rotors to me, so not surprised there's a bit of rubbing, but it will all wear in, it will all bed in, and it will all be fine. Last but not least, we've got these foot peg brackets to fit on with the foot peg pins. So for the final job, we're going to whip these foot pegs off, get these last few bits in before it gets dark, then we're going to get out on that bike and give it a good test ride. So me and Jay are here with the bikes at SX Works in Sheffield, and we're going to be going around the track inside and testing out these new big JXR brake rotors. Let's do it. Woo! Feels good to be on a proper track on the bike finally. We have already done a few laps, so I've had a good feel for the track and a good feel for the brakes on the track already. There is some really lovely jumps here as well. SX Works is a great track, especially for the runs. I mean, even jumps like these, you haven't got the power to really clear them, so it's nice just to come and have a blast. It's a perfect track for it. Nothing is really too small, but there's a few things that are too big, so it's good for the confidence. But as for the brakes, the important thing, that's why we're here, to test these brakes. Obviously with the two 20mm rotors, they are a bigger disc than what you would get standard from a Surron, or bigger than the normal upgraded brakes that you get for Surrons, because they are the bigger size, which is why they come with the spacers. But with the bigger size, you also get better heat dissipation. So times like these where you're flying around a track and your brakes are getting hot, you're still going to have as much stopping power as you would have, or maybe not as much, but you're going to have better stopping power than you would on the stock brakes. But with the brakes helping us stop for each corner perfectly, it makes it a lot easier. I'll be honest, I'm really happy I upgraded my brakes before coming to somewhere like here, because if you come here on stock brakes, you would soon realise that they're just not good enough. We're definitely getting quicker because I flew over that jump. It's the first time I've cleared it that far. A lot of the jumps here, you are having to full throttle over them. On the runs, we're on the stock battery still, 60-volt battery. But again, having that stopping power with the brakes is perfect, because when you're full throttling over jumps, you need that braking stopping power for when you come into the corners. So like that, I barely pressed those brakes and it was making me slide. And that is one of the other things of these brakes that I actually prefer with the bigger rotors. You have got slightly better braking control. They seem to let you feather the brake a lot easier, and you can actually get a better feel for the brake levers rather than it being straight on or straight off. It's another help to having fully controlled brakes, and they are helping out so much on this track. See if we can catch Jay up. He's starting to slow down a bit, so we'll speed up. He's taken my line for once. He normally goes on the left line. It'd be interesting to see how he's coping with his stock brake rotors. We've both done the JXR levers to make the brake levers feel better. We've both got the tank caps for a bit of added bling. We've both done Galfa brake pad upgrades, so we are running on upgraded pads. Woo. So the bikes are fully ready for a track day like this, but again, Jay's just running them stock rotors. Again, feathering them brakes into those corners really does help. I'm taking that one short to get the speed to fly over that. Again, on the brakes, barely having to touch them just to get that stopping power to come into those berms. You don't want to be dead stopped, and you definitely don't want to slide. You just want it to slow you down enough to come out of the corners at a nice speed and come into them at a controlled speed. Whoa, that was to flat. That was fully to flat. I think I've gauged the speed for that one now. Definitely not too quick. Again, the brakes are really helping out in those corners. Jay's fully going for it, and that left line is faster. I keep going for the whoops, and it's making me slower. I'm going to catch him though. I'm trying now. Try and come fast out of this one. You don't have to go straight on the brakes for that, because you just can't clear that on a stock Surron. I'm not having to full throttle that one anymore. We're gaining on him. This is a crazy berm right at the end there. There's a massive rut that tries to have you, but it does send you nicely into this. I tried to have him on that side then and it backfired. I'm going to try and go on the left side like he does. He's gone inside. We're right behind him. I think he knows we're coming for him now as well. See if we can have him on the inside. Again, the brakes are the one. He's flying past us. We're gonna have to control this one. He's gone inside, I've gone out. I've done it. I've fully done him. Whoa, that bit's horrible. That was all the brakes, conveniently for the video. If I didn't have those decent brake rotors and stopping power for that turn, I wouldn't have had him. I'm going to try and go wide, see if he tries to have me. Oh, he's nowhere near. Loving this last berm though. Kicks you out perfectly for that jump there, but you do cut across. Whew. That's such a floater, I love that. When I first started on the track, I was full throttling to get over that jump, whereas now it literally just half throttle floats it. And these two, still full throttle on those, but just got on floaty now. This section, I'm just having to little whip on all of them. Tap of the rear brake sends you over them, and then we're trying to stick to that line now. Flat out down here. Always trying to hit that berm on the wide one. Let's cut it short again. This is mega. Guys, if you're from the UK and you got a spare Saturday or Sunday afternoon, come to SX Works. That's what it's about. If you want to come and have a go on a track, even if it's your first time, get your run, come to Sheffield, come to SX Works, give it a go. It is mega. Only a small track, you can go around endless times, but it gets your confidence up. and you'll get used to riding a proper track. Like I say, I'd never been on a proper track before this, first time ever on a proper track, and I'm loving it. Absolutely flying over everything, getting really comfortable with the bike and how to handle it in a really aggressive riding style. We're even catching Matey Boy up again. I think Jay just got bruised. Whoa, 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 whoa! You good? That was crazy. I mean, it's chilling, it's not doing out. That was mega. I think the bike's fine. You literally look like it's landed stood up.
I think Jay just got bruised. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
That was gnarly. That was so sick, bro.
You took off, didn't they? Yeah. Seen it happen.
No way. Oh, it's a good job he's alright. Me too, my little finger on this one. So if you do want to buy the JXR rotors, the link will be down below in the description. You want to head over to mxbits.com. That is where JXR sell all of their parts. The delivery in Sheffield is always fast. The prices for all the parts are really reasonable. They are upgraded and good Surron parts, but they're affordable, nice Surron parts. With all that being said and done, if you have liked watching this video, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, hitting that like button. And on that note, I'm Matt Francis signing out. Peace.